Test. Sorry, I had to test the mic. Guys, I am so ready. Tonight, I am dyeing my hair dark. I'm gonna do a fake tan. I'm so excited because it's like, ladies, you know those days where you just feel really ugly? Like, no matter what makeup you do, no matter what outfit you wear, you just feel king ugly. And I'm about to start my period, so maybe that has to do with it too. But I've been having that day for like the past week. So then I'm like, maybe I'm just ugly. I think that's like the consensus that I've come to is I'm like, maybe I'm just ugly right now. And this isn't for people to be like, no, don't see. Sometimes you go through an ugly phase, okay? And that's my phase right now. But I would rather have it now, middle of January, everybody's staying inside, they're doing like sober January, whatever. And it's not like midsummer when I need to be really hot. Like, I don't really need to be hot right now. So I'm okay having my ugly phase right now. But just know that's about to change tonight. I'm going darker. I'm going to get rid of all these highlights, and my hairdresser is going to have a conniption because I remember I was in the chair last time trying to get highlights, and I was in the chair for 6 hours because my hair wouldn't take and it wouldn't pick up any of the highlights because I had used box dye. And she was like, girl, did you dye your hair with box dye? And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh my God, don't do it ever again. So I honestly cannot go back to her ever again because if she knows that I went against her word and I box dyed my hair again, she's probably going to wring my neck. And I'm just at the point too where I'm sorry. She told me to come in every 3 months. That appointment is about $300. And the only reason I could do it the first time is because I had a gift card and then I had to even pay more on top of the gift card. So I'm just not in the financial mindset to be going to the salon every 3 months. Give me like a year or two and then maybe we'll be there. But right now, I'm still sticking to the box dye. I've just kind of got to do what I've got to do. And if it makes, what was her name? Jasmine? I think her name was Jasmine. And Jasmine, I'm so sorry for the time being, but when I see you again, just know we're going to have a tough time. Anyways, today I'm talking about the fact that I got fired. So my company, my last job that I had genuinely was my dream job, which makes this 10 times harder. I was putting on events for a social club and an apartment complex, and the events were so fun. Think of like big DJ sets, pool parties, like it was so fun. Our target audience and who we were putting events on for was everyone who was my age. So even though I was working, getting to put on these events, I was socializing with people my age. I was making friends, like connections. It was amazing. And there was so much that went into like what went down at my job. I honestly, I'm scared kind of to talk about it because I'm like, everything that I'm saying is the truth, but I'm also like, I don't want anybody coming for me being like, why are you saying this on the internet? I'm just saying my experience. But basically what had happened over the past couple of months, I got hired back in July and I was hired as a community ambassador for this company. So it was more of like a customer service type role. But I told them, I was like, I want to move up. I want to work in events. I love events and I'm willing to put in the work to show you that I am willing to move up and move up quickly. So then, busting my butt, doing my normal job, but anytime we had events, I made sure to stay an hour or two after to help them clean up. Something that's my biggest pet peeve, and I know we're all different and we have different priorities, but we would have events and these things would go until like 9 o'clock. Event ends 9 o'clock. A lot of us on the schedule would be from 1 to 9 o'clock. I don't care if the schedule says 1 to 9 o'clock. I'm going to stay till 10, 11, 11:30 to help you guys clean up because our crew is small and I'm not going to leave like one person to clean up an entire event. So of course I would stay past my scheduled hours. But we had some people who were like, my hands are tied. I can't. I have to clock out at 9. No, you don't. You're not going to go overtime. Like, this is normal. So I made sure, like, that's also my advice too, is that if you want to move up and you want to move up quickly, put in the extra work, put in the extra effort, stay those hour or two later. And I get it, like your time is valuable. And some people really did value their time over moving up. But know that we were hourly. So we were getting paid for these extra hours that we were putting in. It's not like you're working an hour or two overtime and you're not getting paid. You're getting paid. So my advice too is when you are early in the game, put in the extra effort, put in the extra work, be more than willing to help in different areas and show that you're valuable. So in case something does happen or they decide to dissolve your position or something, they want to utilize you in different areas. Because if you're only good at one thing, you're not super valuable. And if they realize that they don't really need your position anymore at, 2, 3 years from now, you're kind of fucked. But if you can show them that you can work in different areas and that you're super like malleable and that you learn quick, they're going to find value in that because they know that they can utilize you in different areas and they won't have to pay to recruit another person or hire somebody new. So that's my advice. So because I was putting in the extra work and staying late, yada, 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 within 3 months, I got promoted to an events associate. Also, no shade. I feel like Brooke Schofield because I'm talking with my hand a lot. I get it now. Girl, I get it. I fucking get it. I used to watch your videos. It's like, oh, she's a hand talker. But like now I get it. I'm like, what do I do with this thing? I can't just have it sit idle like this. It's weird. So I got promoted to an events associate, but I have very little experience in events. The last time I worked at an events company, I wasn't an event coordinator. I was their HR and the CEO's assistant. But still, you kind of get a feel for like what it takes to do events. Still, I was new, so I was still learning. About 2 weeks into me learning, my manager went off to go get married. So she was going to be out for like 3 weeks. So she told me, she's like, all right, listen, I know we really haven't had time to train or anything, but the ball is in your court for these next 3 weeks. So for 3 weeks, I was in the trenches. I was basically the only person on the events team. I had a couple people helping me, but nobody was designated as an event coordinator or an events associate. So I was working like every pay period, I was working like 91 plus hours. Like it was insane. I was exhausted. But the whole time in my head, I was just like, she's coming back. Like once she gets back, things will finally settle down. I'll finally get some time to, chill and I can start learning more because I had really been thrown into the fire. I had no idea how, I had to run meetings where we go over our banquet event orders with our food and beverage team, things like that. I don't know if this is boring to you, but just recapping like what I had to do. It was a lot of work. It was basically I had to act as a manager of our entire events for the property. And I've never even been in a manager position before, so it's a little scary. But the whole time in my head, I was like, she's coming back, don't worry, this is gonna be fine. My boss came back from getting married, and 2 days later, she put in her notice. So it was just me. So the last part of 2023 was tricky. Honestly, it was a huge learning curve because I was really thrown into the role of having to be a manager and how to manage a team. It was very stressful though. And I kept waiting. I was like, are you guys going to hire an actual like event coordinator sometime soon? And they kept saying, yes, we're looking. So I was like, okay, as long as I can stick it out through the end of the year, at least by January, we'll finally get an actual event coordinator so I can still learn because there are a lot of things I still didn't know how to do. Like, I don't know how to negotiate venue prices. I really don't know how to talk to we're on calls with these massive music companies, and I'm like, I have no idea how to, like, even steer the conversation or, like, what we can offer, truly. Like, I'm still learning. But I kept thinking, you know what? I just gotta make it through these next couple of months, and we'll be gooch. I was just so excited to grow in this position because it was so promising, and the events that we put on were so fun. We would do like drag bingo, we would do tequila and tacos tasting, we would do DJ sets, we did comedy shows, we did like everything you can think of, we did. I was so ready to grow with this company and grow with this career because it was so exciting and so fun. And while it was like tiring, I couldn't get enough of it. I loved it. And then on December 11th, it was actually my day off. We had just done our last event that weekend, and it was a hit. We did a comedy show. We did our little holiday party. It was great. And then on December 11th, it was my day off, and I get an invite for a company-wide Zoom call. And I just had a feeling in my stomach where I was like, something does not feel right because this was on a Monday and the Zoom call was set for like 6 o'clock at night. And I had a really nasty feeling in my stomach. I knew what was coming. Sure enough, get on the Zoom call that night, and they basically said that they had to close the social club and that we were all let go. But the reason I wasn't freaking out too much was because I don't know how to explain this well and without like throwing anybody under the bus, because like at the end of the day, it's just business. Um, but basically, I had been invited to a meeting because the club and the apartment are different entities. And so I was invited to a meeting with like the apartment operations team, and they said that they were going to be sending me an offer to still do events for the apartment. So I thought, perfect. Like, I still have a job, thank God. They said, give us about a week and a half. You should have these by, I think that week, I should have expected it by like December 21st. After this meeting, they invited us to a Slack channel where they were just trying to like put all the pieces together of, they put me and a couple other people from the club team that they were going to keep. There was only like 4 or 5 of us that were in there. And they said, be expecting these offer letters. We still want to keep you on, but just have you work for the apartment side. So after that, communication, at least for me, went silent. And I had heard that there was like meetings going on with other people and that they weren't including events and all of this. And so I was just kind of like, what is going on? And finally, December 21st hits. I don't have an offer in my hand. So I'm like, what the fuck? So I was like, you know what? I'll give it some time. I reached out to some of the people who worked on that team and I was like, hey, any updates on the offer? Silence. So I was like, okay. But of course, we're around Christmas this time. I'm traveling. So I was like, you know what? Okay, maybe it's the holidays. Everybody's out of office. I get it. Let me give it until, after Christmas, maybe like December 27th, 28th, reach out again and see what's going on. December 28th hits, still nothing. I see somebody in our Slack channel even reach out and say, any updates? Silence. I'd come to find out that they did actually send offers to a few people of the team, but they never ended up sending me an offer. And I think it's just because they couldn't afford to have an events person for the time being, and they're still trying to figure out like what's going on. But your girl would have appreciated a little communication. That's all I'm asking. It's just a little communication. Like, all you got to tell me, just, I'm a big girl. I'm a big girl. You can tell it to me straight. So finally, by January 1st, I called one of my other coworkers, and she kind of just like gave it to me straight, where she was like, I think you need to look for another position. Like, I don't think they have the money for events, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, great. So I'd waited all of this time like a dumbass for an offer that never came. So then January 1st hit, and I was like, I need to get this thing into gear. So I jumped on LinkedIn, did all that good stuff, whatever. And yeah, so then this week, I have my 2 final interviews for 2 positions that I'm really excited about. So like all is well, but I would have appreciated like a little more transparency so I could have started this job search back in December and not January, because a girl's got to pay rent, okay? And honestly, thank God for my mom and my parents, just all my parents. Thank God for my mom, my stepdad, my dad, my stepmom. Like, they have really helped me out. And like, I just hate asking for money, y'all, or like asking for help. It feels so like yay. And that none of them ever made me feel bad about it. They were like, we've all been in this position before, and people had to help us out too. So like, don't feel bad. So I love y'all. Thank you for helping me not, get evicted. Appreciate it. But that's not even the best part. Okay, we're gonna get into the best part of all this happening. And this is what sucks too. Like, guys, I'm not kidding. This was my dream job. I loved all of my coworkers. I still do. Just the way that things happened in kind of like a shitty way. And I honestly don't think it was necessarily anyone's fault, because nobody had ever gone through this before, and nobody had ever experienced like a company closing, the entire company getting laid off. Like, we were all kind of in shock and didn't know what to do. So in the moment I was upset, but now I'm like, it happens. Like, this is life. But this is the best part. So in my offer letter, I get a severance check. 2 weeks. 2 weeks severance. Not the greatest. I did have a friend who worked in like the medical field or something, And when she got laid off, her severance was like $8,000. I was like, see, with that, I would have gone on vacation. I would have taken some time, but like 2 weeks severance ain't gonna do it for me. So I'm expected to get this severance by January 5th. Okay? Okay, cool. January 5th comes. I open my bank account. There is no money. I go to my ADP account. There is no money. The people that I knew that were still working for the old CEO, because I don't know what's really going on, but I reached out to the old CEO, our chief of staff, everyone. I said, I didn't receive my severance. What's going on? Apparently, the guy who was handling all of the severances didn't account for any of the hourly employees. He only accounted for the salary employees. So none of us got our severance. None of the hourly employees got their severance. And I was like, oh, has anybody else reached out to you guys and said anything? And they're like, no. I'm like, do these people not want their money? So then I was like, okay, let me know once you finally get it, because like I need bills. I have to pay some bills, especially like student loans. They don't play around. You cannot pay those late. They were like, should have it sent over by the 9th, and it should be in your ADP. Okay, great. I go to my ADP January 9th. It is there. The money is there. My 2-week severance is there, but it's not in my bank account. Interesting. So then I called ADP and I was like, hey, hi, what's going on? And basically what they told me was the money was in my account, but they had set the severance to be sent as a check. I was like, why didn't they just set it to be sent as direct deposit? It's already January 9th. So they were like, I don't know, you'll have to talk to your HR. And I was like, funny, we don't have an HR. So anyways, she was like, it's sent out as a check. You should expect it by January 15th. I was like, oh my God. Okay, thank you. All right. January 15th comes by. No check. So finally I called them again. I called ADP and I was like, hey, I was supposed to get this check in the mail. It's my severance pay, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, okay, let me see what I can do. And the man asked me, mind you, I live in Phoenix, okay? Phoenix, Arizona. The man on the other side said, okay, so I have this check being sent to Chicago, where your headquarters are located. At this point, I was so angry. I started like tearing up, but I knew it was not his fault. Like he was just trying to help, but I was just like, so you're telling me this check got routed to the headquarters in Chicago? Come again? He was like, yeah, I see that the check was routed to the headquarters. And I was like, that's not where I live. I was like, well, I live in Phoenix. So what am I going to do to get this check here? He was like, I would honestly speak with your HR and see how they can have it rerouted. And I was like, you don't understand. We don't have an HR, Gary. So at this point, I was like frantic. And I was like, my check is literally floating in Chicago somewhere. Like, who is going to pick this up? I need this money. It's already January 15th. 10 days past when I'm supposed to get this goddamn check. So then I got a little mean. At this point, though, I was kind of like, this is ridiculous. So I emailed the person I knew who was still doing finances for the company, or the old CEO. And I was like, at this point, I'm pretty upset and kind of bothered by how unprofessional this has all gone, blah, blah, blah. I said, my check is being sent to Chicago. I do not live in Chicago. I live in Phoenix. And I even did like the email thing where you like flag it and you're like, important. I was like, this is important. This is my livelihood. This is my money. I'm supposed to get it by January 5th. And he finally replied a day later and he was like, I'm so sorry. I will have this rerouted and sent overnight through FedEx. So I finally got my check on January 18th. Almost 2 weeks after I was supposed to get it, but it's fine. It's fine. And then I found out everyone else who's hourly, their checks were also sent to Chicago. We all live in Phoenix. So they got theirs about 3 days later, but I was adamant. So I got mine. Adamant. So I got mine the next day. It's fine because like I even went and got drinks with a couple of my old coworkers the other day, and it's just like we're all just like really sad about the fact that it happened, because like we all loved this company, we all loved what we did, and it just sucks. Like it was a good thing. I'll tell you what, we lost a good thing. So I've been unemployed for about 40 days now, and even saying that out loud, I'm like, yeah. But let me tell you, part of me, I'm kind of enjoying it now because I have a little routine, and I'm like, oh my God, I get why these little influencers who do nothing but like daily routines and post it on YouTube and make a living off of that do it. It's very like peaceful, let me tell you. I mean, it's peaceful now because the first 2 weeks of January I was in panic, like not kidding, because I was also just upset that like I had wasted so much time, and that even if you are promised a job or a position or something, take it with a grain of salt. A grain of salt. Okay? Because too many times, like I said, I'm only 23, but I've been kind of taken advantage of a lot by the corporations that I work for. Like my job before this one, our boss had promised us all this shit all the time. He promised us bonuses after big festivals that we would do. Never saw a dime. Never saw a dime. So I was like, okay, nice. Just very much talk. So what I would say is get everything in writing, because then if they try to come back to you, you can say, you said this on this day. But yeah, if anybody's promising bonuses or an offer or something, what's that word about keeping your cards too close to your chest or something? I don't know. Just explore your options, because you're going to always need a plan B and a plan C. And I'm learning that the hard way. Even though they said they were going to send an offer, I really should have been like actively looking, but I was like, oh no, I'm fine. I'm gooch. I'm good. And then I wasn't gooch and good. I was terrible and distraught. So yeah, I think that's what I've learned so far in my 2 years of working up the corporate ladder, is to take everything with a grain of salt, always have a plan B and a plan C for yourself, because you have to look out for yourself before you look out for any of these corporations, because they are not looking out for you. Trust in that. It does feel weird to be fired, though. I've never gotten fired, and I was like, well, at least we're all in this together, you know? If I was singularly fired, goddamn, that would ruin me, and I would tell no one. To be completely frank, I would tell no one. I would just find a job before having to tell anybody. Okay, but I also want to acknowledge the fact that I am very privileged to have lost my job and it not be like the end of my world. And it was in a sense of like, wow, my dream job there went. But I know a lot of people lose their job and it's like crisis, because it's crucial that like they need money. They can't miss a paycheck. And honestly, I can't. But having my parents as like a backbone, being able to help me for this month, oh God, what would I do without them? Truly, like I'm so honestly, I'm so grateful. I know that like some people don't have that backbone. It's literally just them, and they're in like survival mode the minute they lose a job. And so like, bro, I'm just lucky that I am in like half survival mode, because I need to get a job by the end of the month, but it's not like I need a job tomorrow, you know, because that shit is so scary. And like, if anybody is going through that, like, I feel for you, and I wish I could send you my severance check, but I already used it for rent. So even like having them as like somebody I can confide in and just be like sad about this, because like honestly, I don't like being like sad in front of people. So whenever they ask me about like, how are you okay, I'm like, oh, I'm good, like I'm figuring it out, like don't you worry. But inside I'm like, I'm not okay. I just lost my dream job. What am I gonna do? Nothing compares to you. I'm on a downward spiral. Do I gotta do something that's viral to make money for my honey? I don't know what to do with my life. Do I even wanna be a wife? I don't know, it sounds nice, but then I think of having kids. Am I ready for that either? Maybe neither. But I see the way my mama looks at me, and I want that with my baby. That's exactly how I feel in my head when they ask me that. So anyways, let's get off of the work talk, because I've had to tell so many people. I tried to keep it a secret from like my family too, that I got fired. I mean, my extended family. Like I went to Christmas and they were like, how's your job? I was like, I love it. And then one of my cousins like called me out. He's like, I heard you lost your job. And everybody was like, and I was like, yeah, I did. thanks, Keegan. Just kidding. He meant it in like a very like heartfelt way where he's like, how are you doing? And I was just like, good, I'm doing great. Anyways, like I said, I've had a lot of time to just like consume media. So my newest obsession of this week is the new Netflix movie that came out called Society of the Snow. If you have not seen this movie, don't watch this because I'm going to be talking about it at length, and this is for the peeps who have watched it, who get it. But if you haven't watched it, I'm going to recommend, like, literally get off my video right now and go watch it. Like, if you were in the middle of your lunch break, like, call in sick. Go home. Because, I mean, if you've learned anything from this video, these corporations don't care about you. So, like, call in sick and go watch this movie. It moved me in a way where, like, I can't stop thinking about it, and I can't stop thinking about, like, it was just such an incredible story, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since I watched it. But it is about a group of rugby players. I think they're from Uruguay. So I think it's like Uruguayan rugby players who are, it's a whole rugby team, and they take a flight, and the plane ends up crashing in the Andes Mountains, and it's just about their survival, because 16 out of the like 40 some people that were on the flight ended up surviving for 72 days in the Andes Mountains. Of course, I deep dived into this whole movie after I watched it because I had seen, sorry if that cut weird, I ran out of storage, so I had to delete my Spotify. This story is insane, and it's based on a true story, and I've seen it before, but it was kind of like the sensationalized version of, if you haven't heard the story before, basically when they're in Andes Mountains, you're probably like, how the hell did they survive 72 days with like no food? I mean, they're in the mountains, so like there was snow that they could melt to make water, but you're like, how did they survive that many days without food? They didn't. Basically, the people who had passed away on the flight or just while they were stranded, they ended up eating them and using them as like a source of food. I think a lot of times this story is kind of like told, and not in a disrespectful way, but a lot of people really focus on, oh my God, they resorted to cannibalism to survive the 72 days in the Andes. And yes, they did, but this movie, I think, really does it well when telling the story, because it shows like the humanity in them and how like they were all very Catholic, and like most of them thought they were going to go to hell for eating these people, but they were just trying to survive. And I've seen interviews too where they said that like they were so hungry, it's all you can think about. Like they were trying to eat like cigarettes and shoelaces and pieces of their luggage. Like they were literally resorting to eating anything but that. But they got to the point where they were like, we're going to starve to death. We have a resource here. But it, like, the way that they tell it in the movie, The Society of the Snow, is like they did it right, if you know what I mean. Like they weren't trying to like add the shock value of, oh my God. It was more just like them having to deal with that internal dilemma of like, this is what I need to do to survive, but is this okay? Is this morally okay to like consume another person so I can stay alive, even though that they were already dead? And it's just like seeing that like battle, that internal battle that all of them went through. And oh my God, it's just such a like, if I think about it too hard, I'm literally going to start crying because it's such a touching story. And to think that these people actually went through this, that is a different type of person. And something I thought was like a very smart move with this movie is the director wanted people in this movie who were not recognizable actors. He wanted you to feel like this is real, like this, he wanted you to believe this story, like this is real, these are real people. Because I mean, if you throw somebody in there like, I don't know, Brad Pitt in a survival movie, you're gonna be like, oh, I'm not watching a survivor, I'm watching Brad Pitt play a survivor. You know what I mean? But if you watch somebody who you don't really recognize, you really believe and really fall into that story. I thought that was a really neat touch. He didn't want to use any recognizable faces as actors. He wanted it to be like as realistic as he could. And I think another really thoughtful piece of the movie, this is a big spoiler, so if you haven't watched it, skip. The main character, Numa, who is played by Enzo Vogrinchik, I think is how you say his name? Vogrinchich. He's the narrator. And typically, the narrator makes it to the end. But he actually dies halfway throughout the movie. But he's still narrating from the dead. And the director said that he really wanted to give a voice to not just the survivors, but the people who had endured this and were still heroes even though they didn't survive. Because Numa, in so many ways, when they first talked to the survivors about Numa, like they all had the same expression of, oh, Numa, like they were just all so fond of him. Like he was such an amazing person. He kept spirits high. He was always somebody who wanted to help and do for the group and give himself in any way that he could. And I just thought that was such a smart piece, because I think a lot of times, like, those who passed are forgotten, but giving a voice to those who were deceased was what a beautiful artistic move, genuinely. And it was such a shock, honestly, in the movie. Like when he died, I was like, no, 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 no. This is a joke. But the way he narrates it is also like so chilling, because like I said, you expect the narrator to make it to the end, and then he says, my name is Numa, whatever his last name was, and he's like, I died on December 11th, 19 whatever. And he left a note in his hand that said something along the lines of, the best gift you can give is yourself to your friends, or something like that, about like just giving to people is like the best gift you can give. And I'm like, what? Some people are just such good people. I'm like, ugh. I just feel like if I was in that situation, I would be so scared that I don't know if I could be that person who's like, I'm just going to continue giving, because I'd have so much fear inside of me that I don't know. People like that are just built different. Like, genuinely, I'm like, wow. And the ending scene, when they're finally rescued and they're reunited with everyone, oh my God, broke me. Truly broke me. Just knowing everything that they've been through, and like there's a scene where they're finally like getting cleaned up and they're like finally taking showers, and you see all the weight that they've lost. And this movie was done so right, and you can tell the actor had so much respect for the story, whereas I feel like everybody else just kept focusing on like the cannibalism part, whereas he focused more on like the humanity part of it, like genuinely each and every one of their stories and how they were able to survive and like what they had to do to help one another. And I just think it was so beautifully done. If you can, watch like the behind the scenes stuff too, because it's so interesting learning about like the actors and them spending time with the real survivors and how they really felt like at the end of the day they were the people they were playing. That was another thing, is because these actors were unknown, they were very new, and they said that a lot of them were used to doing just like theater plays. They weren't used to actual movies. I feel like every single one of these guys who acted in this movie are going to blow up after this, because they did such an incredible job. I was like, there's no way this is like some of their first big movies, because their performances were insane. Like I believed it. I believed it in my heart right here. So it was one of those movies. I even went on like a Reddit thread about it, and I read more about like the true stories. There is some shocking stuff I found out, because in the movie, Numa, who passes away, he passes away because in the movie, there's a huge avalanche that ends up burying the plane while they're in it. And so they're like, I don't know, 10 feet underground, stuck under all this snow. And in the movie, he kicks out a window so he can like dig out of the snow and get them above ground. And when he kicks the window out, a piece of glass cuts his leg. The cut ends up getting infected, and that's initially what kills him, is from the infection. But then somewhere in one of the books that one of the survivors wrote, they said that, oh God, what was his name? He's one of the other big characters. I'm just going to dub over his name because I can't remember the name, what it was, but
Roberto Canessa.
Because they were a rugby team, they were wearing like those cleats that have the spikes in them. And they said that he was kind of careless and would just like walk over everyone with his cleats on while they were in the plane, and that he stepped on Numa, and that's what cut his leg, and that cut got an infection. Just crazy stuff like that, where I'm like, I'm so deep into this story, and I just want to give every single one of those men a hug. To go through something like that changes you for life. Like, you are not the same. And so that's why I thought it was crazy that they're all like doing very well. A lot of them were like professors and engineers and this and that. And I'm like, I would have gone crazy. I would have been the one who like went off the deep end. But then I also think, at least this is what I've kind of interpreted, is the fact that they were the ones who got to live. I think they wanted to live a life for the people who couldn't, the people who lost their life and didn't make it, because at the end of the day, them having to survive by, eating the people who had passed, they didn't do all that for nothing. So why not pursue these great feats in life and try to be as successful as you can? Like, I get it, but I'm also like, knowing my brain, I would go crazy. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. Please, please, if you have a spare second, go watch it because you're going to fall in love with Enzo, aka Numa, aka my boo boo thing. He does not speak English. But listen, I learned Korean for BTS very poorly. I will learn Spanish for Enzo if I need to. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Eso sí que es. My dad taught me that if you spell socks, like what you wear on your feet, eso sí que es, it means it is what it is in Espanol. Eso sí que es. Tell me if that's right. Or was my father lying to me? But he also doesn't really know Spanish. My papa, though, full Mexican, he knows Espanol. I think that's like his first language. So I do kind of wish he taught us a little bit growing up. So yeah, don't think I haven't forgot about Heath Ledger. I'm just so deep into it that I needed to give myself a break or else I was gonna like freak out big time. Yeah, don't think that time is over. I just need to give myself a little break, a little breather because it's almost like overwhelming to take in all this content. Like I saw Brittany Broski, my girl. I love that woman. Said something about how like Pedro Pascal was on Hot Ones and she had like waited like 3 weeks to watch it cuz she's like I can't. That's how I feel with Heath right now. I'm like I can't watch another movie or I'm going to freak the fuck out. And also it's this whole thing of like he's not going to make another one, so I don't want to like just steamroll through all of them and then have nothing left. So I'm giving it some time, but do not think I haven't thought about my baby boy Heath. I was trying to like therapize myself though, and I'm like, why am I watching all these movies and diving into these stories? I think I'm honestly just trying to forget about what's going on in my life. Truly. Like that's why I'm so invested in these movies. But on a lighter note, I think it's because I'm really sick of this short form content, even though I be making some too. It's fun once in a while, but sometimes I want a story. Like give me something with some heart and some heat. Constantly seeing things that are just like 60 seconds long, I'm like, okay, and like what am I supposed to do with this? I've been getting back into like the stories of entertainment. And somebody on my last video commented, they were like, yo, come be a nerd with us and download Letterboxd. I downloaded it. I'm obsessed. I did have to go back and put in some old movies that I watched recently. Actually, I guess I should explain what this is. It's basically an app where you can log all of the movies that you've watched and you can rate and review them. And something I really appreciate is if there's a movie that you haven't seen, you can go and look at the reviews and the ratings and the full cast, but the ratings that have spoilers in them will be like blurred. So you can be like, oh, do you want to see this? It has spoilers, and you can click on it. But yeah, so you can look at reviews without having to look at spoilers. But at the same time, I don't like necessarily looking at reviews before watching a movie because sometimes it'll sway my movie mind or whatever. Like I'll have this bias in my brain already. Whereas if I just go in and watch it, it's amazing. Like I watched this one with Sydney Sweeney. It was called like The Voyeurs or something like that. And I almost turned it off. I felt like the acting at the beginning was so bad. I was like, oh God, this is cringe. Like it just felt very unnatural. Like I felt like I was watching two strangers living together when they were supposed to be like loving boyfriend and girlfriend. I almost turned it off. And then I read a Letterboxd review and they were like, oh my God, the twists and the turns. So I was like, all right, whatever. Yeah, there were a lot of twists and turns. I'm glad I finished it. But I do love this app because then you can also just see from like a list view all of the movies you've watched. And it's a little sad because you're like, wow, that's a lot of hours of my life. But then you're like, what else would I be doing? Scrolling on TikTok, you know? So I love that app. Guys, download Letterboxd. It's so fun. People are so funny too. I'm like, how are people so witty and quick? Like a lot of the reviews, I'll go to movies that I've already seen and look at the reviews and like people are so damn funny. I'm like, why couldn't I think of this? And then I'm sitting there on my reviews trying to be like quirky and funny and I'm like, oh my God, nobody's looking at this. Like just write what you feel. But now I get why like old people, this is really all they talk about is like movies and entertainment because before when I had a job, I was going out. I was out in the town. And now I'm not like, I don't really have the money to be spending to going out. So I'm like, well, movies are free. Basically. So now I get it. I get why all the old farts just talk about, did you see Tom Cruise in the newest Mission Impossible? No. But now I'm like, yeah, I did. So I'm into cinema, bro. I love it. I think that's really all I have to talk about. If you've been fired, it's okay. Comment down below if you've been fired. And watch Society of the Snow, please, and tell me if you've already seen it, your feelings. Yeah. Also, get any movie recs that you have where you're like, you have to watch this. But like good movies, okay? I'm not really into the cheesy, corny, kettle corn, corn on the cob type of, you know? I want like good, like, oh, yeah, go, get it right in the heart. That's what I'm looking for. So, love y'all. Thank you for watching.